So Keith, thanks so much for spending time with me today.
Of course.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. Why moldings?
Yeah, finishing a home with molding was purely functional at first. If you don't finish the interior, you have a lot of drafting, right? There's a lot of drafted air moving through the house, and also to finish off the irregularities that happen in construction. Something you might well know as the builder's secret, when you ideally think that the room is square and everything is perfectly plumb. It's not necessarily the case, and so the best way to finish off corners and edges is to add on various forms of molding.
But it evolved from there.
It did indeed, very much so.
Why all the varied patterns? They're so diverse.
Yeah, first of all was functionally, what was happening in the environment of the particular climate, what was happening in the temperament of society, what was an aesthetic popularity. Those things started becoming something of a vernacular in various regions across the United States. And that's inspired by human creativity and how trend and society communicate what might be defined as beautiful at any given time in history. For example, in the 30s through the 50s, there was just this romantic embrace for classicism. So there were just all sorts of amazing things happening in this world that people had seen from generations and centuries past that they wanted to figure out how to inspire in construction here. And now it had no place in Seattle. It didn't have a vernacular here, but it had one in other parts of the country. And especially with the construction of housing and the theatrical industry that was happening in Southern California. We would bring Europeans with the finest craftsmanship to make these elaborate scenes of historic accuracy for a movie set. Those folks would find themselves furnishing interiors for the stars of those films in that area. And then they'd find themselves running a bit mad by the personality type that would perhaps employ them there, and they'd run to an escape like the Pacific Northwest. And so all of a sudden we'd have an influx of craftsmen who would come to the Pacific Northwest and build beautiful houses of a historic style that is inaccurate to its particular era, but it's looking back at something romantic and lovely because the skill was here and there was kind of this romantic vibe happening. And it's a funny story. If you look way back in history, the Tudors were a family royalty in England. How many centuries ago was that?
Right.
And the Tudor style has very much to do with a lath and plaster and a stick construction where you have to have timbers and frames at various arches and angles to hold up the plaster enough to become something structural and that's protective of weather. Crafting something special that told a story that was unique, that inspired people, became its own style that was just very, very charming. It could be very grand and a fortress like the Tudors lived in, or it could then start looking out into the streets of all the marketplaces of the common man of that era. So it just maintained itself in Europe and through Germany and all the way through England, this particular heavy timbered style where there's lots of exposed wood and lots of interesting plaster work and carving in a very charming style that we might think of as like a gingerbread house. Just very, very charming. You can step into the molding center and see what elements make that work. For example, in the Tudor style, you're going to see more of a mitered corner perhaps on a wrap around your casing and on your doors and windows. You might see a plaster cove that would reach a very dramatic arch from maybe a picture rail to the ceiling.
Oh, sure.
It's very, again, romantic. It was studied, researched from historic styles from, again, New England all the way through to European styles from way back when Shakespeare was running around. So those particular details are features that can be really attractive, that you can tell, this makes sense for my house, I'd like to keep this style. And because it's in Seattle, we have it available here. And you'll see now, today, people who will choose, really. And that's what's beautiful about having this design showroom, is that they can step in and go, oh, I see that flat stock. I don't really like that. Oh, hey, look over here. This one has an interesting little crown detail on the top of my flat stock that gives it just enough extra that would be fine in taste without going overboard, or whatever it might be. People will reinvent their spaces, but they can do it very tastefully because we have a lovely story to tell for them here. So as a designer, I'm very confident in what I would want to specify for the creation of the interior of a home. If I'm coming to Dunn Lumber like I should, how best would I be prepared? What should I bring with me to be able to know confidently that I'm going to be purchasing the right materials?
In the case of not really knowing what the style is. If we had some pictures of the outside of their home
Yeah.
and some interior pictures, and also some of the dimensions. You know, we like to know the ceiling height,
Nice.
door height, so that we know kind of what we're working with, so that we can scale it to fit that customer's desires.
Right. It's important to see it and feel it and get a sense experientially in a three-dimensional environment how to put these things together.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.